Good morning. Did everybody have a terrific day yesterday? All right. We've just begun, right? So I want to thank the organizers for all their work. This is really a wonderful conference. I'm Ron Riggio. I'm a former board member of the ILA, and I'm chair of the Legacy Committee. And I want to also thank Denny Roberts for his musical contributions again this morning. Denny. So I have the pleasure of inducting two of our outstanding leadership scholars into our virtual Hall of Fame today. First is Helen Aston, Lena to her friends. She was born in Greece in 1932. Having endured her country's occupation during World War II and the subsequent Greek Civil War, she came to the U.S. in 1951. She quickly learned English, completed her undergraduate and her master's degree, and was only the second woman to be conferred the PhD in psychology from the University of Maryland. It was there at Maryland that she met her life partner and frequent collaborator, Alexander Sandy Aston. The Astons moved to UCLA in 1973, where Lena co-created the Higher Education Research Institute and co-founded the Center for the Study of Women. While at UCLA, her work had an enormous impact on both higher education and on our understanding of leadership, particularly women in leadership and the gender disparity in leadership opportunities and careers. She was co-PI on the 1993 Eisenhower Grant that resulted in the 1996 Social Change Model of Leadership Development, working with Susan Komovez. And the Social Change Model is the most widely used model in co-curricular leadership programs in both the U.S. and around the globe. And here at the ILA conference, it's the 20th anniversary of the model, and there have been sessions, and there was a panel on it at this conference, and we'll be talking about it more. It's because of Helen Aston's research, her 14 books, and her influence on higher education and leadership. And those of us in higher education, we know about the contributions of the Higher Education Research Institute and the contributions of the Astons. But it's for all of these accomplishments that she is the recipient of the ILA Lifetime Achievement Award. So let's have a round of applause for Helen. Next, we have Barbara Kellerman. Barbara is the quintessential leadership scholar. Her research and observations are the basis for books and articles that really address the big ideas in leadership and followership. She regularly appears on those lists of top business thinkers, management professionals, and leadership gurus. She's a regular contributor to the New York Times, the Washington Post, Harvard Business Review, and many other publications. She's appeared on numerous TV outlets, BBC, CNN, NPR. Throughout Barbara's career, she's been ahead of the curve on discussing trends and important issues in leadership, and she's often been bucking the trends that other leadership scholars and practitioners are writing. She wrote the book Bad Leadership at a time when books were extolling the virtues of good leadership. She challenged the existing male-dominated models of leadership in her book, Women in Leadership. Importantly, she brought followership to the forefront in her book, and then later in her Harvard class, and I'm not too sure there's very many classes on followership, but her book on followers and followership. And she critiqued the growing leadership industry in her book, The End of Leadership. It's fitting that Barbara holds the James MacGregor Burns Lecturer in Public Leadership at the Harvard Kennedy School, where she's also the founding executive director of the school's Center for Public Leadership. Given that Barbara was inspired and encouraged in her work by another renowned scholar of leadership and another member of our Lifetime Achievement, James MacGregor Burns. So, Barbara, will you please join me on stage? And I think, too, we've got to talk about Barbara's contributions to the International Leadership Association, because we might not all be here if it weren't for Barbara's role in helping to form this organization. Barbara, for your many contributions to the field, and on behalf of the ILA and the Legacy Committee, it's our honor to induct you into the ILA Virtual Hall of Fame as a luminary of the leadership profession with the ILA Lifetime Achievement Award. Please join me in congratulating Barbara.
Thank you, Ron. You said this was a virtual Hall of Fame. I thought it was a real, where's the hall? I'm depressed. At this point, I've got all of 3 minutes, I was told, to make a few remarks, so I'm going to make them very, very quickly. First of all, thank you to all of you for this honor and this award. Yes, I was around at the beginning, and I love being here 18 years later. So I want to make 6 very quick points. First of all, the year 1998, the year the ILA was founded, the year we had, as Cynthia recently confirmed, our first meeting at the University of Southern California, was also what I consider a watershed moment in American politics, which we did not fully get at the time. It was the year of Monica Lewinsky. If you look back at that year, it was a time of peace and prosperity. We had the luxury, if you will, to focus on sex. Who knew that 18 years later, we would still be focusing on sex? I consider that actually, no joke, a watershed moment, because what it did was debase the nation's highest office, the nation's most prominent leader, in a way that was historically unprecedented. It emboldened everyone else to do things vis-a-vis the chief executive that we would have never previously dreamed of. So, number one, 1998, watershed year, the start of the ILA, but also politically an absolute forerunner of what we are seeing in 2016. Point number two, what it suggests is that ever since then, in striking ways, all leaders, and I mean leaders across the board, you have only to look at the polls and you will see that all leaders have been weakened. They are trusted less, they are admired less, they have a harder time getting anything done. This applies, as I said, across the board, and I could point to the scandal in the Catholic Church, which has since been replicated, but even religious leaders, if you look at a Pew poll, you will see that they're quite far down now on the list of those American leaders who are trusted. The highest, by the way, are military leaders. Point number three, the importance of context. A book that I've written that Ron didn't mention, it was actually my last book, it's called Hard Times, Leaders in America. I cannot tell you how strongly I feel that to discuss leadership without discussing followership and without including context in our collective conversation is a mistake. Leaders are part of what I now invariably call the leadership system. This is not rocket science. The focus on followers has been around for decades. The focus on context has been around for decades. But the ILA and the leadership industry generally is leader-centric to the point of navel-gazing, and it's something I believe the leadership field, the leadership industry, even the International Leadership Association needs to reconsider. Point number four, Donald Trump as the great man is therefore misleading. By great man, I don't mean great man, I mean great as in important, as in changing the world, so forth and so on, changing the nature of politics. No, he did not. He is a reflection of what is going on, and he is a reflection, among other things, of a large proportion, large percentage of the American population that feels disenfranchised, furious, and angry. And if we stare at Trump and don't look at those who are what I might call his diehard followers, we are missing something very, very large. Point number five, the changes to which I refer are global and transsectoral. They're not confined to the United States. You need only look at what is happening in Western liberal democracies, for example, across Europe, and no, I'm not going to mention Brexit. I could as well mention Poland, Austria, Hungary, the Netherlands, populist nationalist movements. This restiveness, this follower-driven, not leader-driven, leaders reflect it. Follower-driven restiveness is a reflection of the trends that I'm talking about. Twinned with that is what's happening in autocracies. It is no accident that strongmen like Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, Erdogan of Turkey, Sisi of Egypt, I could go down the list. They are a reflection of what I'm talking about, because they know that unless they become more oppressive, more suppressive, followers, ordinary people, are going to revolt. So their way of tamping this down is to become, as I said, more oppressive, not less. Finally, my point is about the ILA. I was, as you now know, here at the beginning, and I was myself writing about leadership then. Leader, 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 leader. We still use the words leader and leadership as a way to describe the phenomenon of social change, or as I often say, historical causation. That's what this is about. Leaders make a difference. But I understand now in a way that I never did before, that I never used to, I should say, that unless we broaden, I'm repeating myself, but I want to end with the connection to the ILA, unless we broaden our conception of leadership to include, as I said, followers. By followers, I mean others. If you prefer the word stakeholders, be my guest. But we need to be more inclusive in our consideration of social change and our consideration of historical causation, and also context. Last word, technology. The degree to which technology has changed relations between leaders and followers is incalculable. There was no social media 18 years ago. How can we have a leadership conference without exploring context, contextual changes, and they include, for example, technology? Thank you. Was that 3 minutes?
Truly amazing. You can see why it's such a privilege and honor to recognize people like Barbara and Nancy. Thank you very much. Continuing our tradition of recognizing and honoring exemplary achievement at every phase of the leadership journey, we have 2 more awards. The Frederick M. Jablin Doctoral Dissertation Award and the Kenneth E. Clark Student Research Award. Joining me now to present these awards are Donaldson R. Forsyth with the Jepson School of Leadership Studies for the Jablin awardee, and Jennifer Martineau, Center for Creative Leadership for the Clark awardee.
Good morning, colleagues. I am so proud and honored on behalf of the Center for Creative Leadership, not-for-profit educational research and leadership development organization, to present the Kenneth E. Clark Student Research Award. After a 40-year career at top-tier universities, 3 branches of the military, and serving in leadership roles at numerous professional organizations, Dr. Ken Clark became our president from 1981 to 1985, and we flourished. When he retired, he became a Smith Richardson Senior Scientist. Smith Richardson was our founder. It's a lifetime appointment. And just to tell you a little bit about Ken, our staff gave him a retirement gift that was a 12-foot long, 3-inch diameter wooden pole with the inscription, "For Kenneth Clark, a leader who routinely solves problems that other people wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole." After his retirement, CCL created this particular award to recognize unpublished student papers on leadership or leadership development. ILA began co-sponsoring the award in 2010. This year's award recipient is Dr. Kyung Young Kim. who's now an assistant professor in the management department at the College of Business, City University of Hong Kong. He received his PhD in management from the University of Houston. His award-winning research is titled Supportive Leadership, a conditional process model linking leadership, climate, and horizontal relationships between subordinates. Following on Barbara's presentation, I think there's a lot of relevance in this one. I encourage you to attend Dr. Kim's presentation at 12:15 in Hanover E today. I can assure you you'll be impressed with his research conceptually, methodologically, and in terms of its implications for both research and practice. Please join me in congratulating Dr. Kim.
Good morning, everyone. It is my distinct honor to announce the awarding of the 2016 Frederick M. Jablin Award for Outstanding Doctoral Dissertation in the Field of Leadership Studies to Dr. James Lemoyne. Dr. Lemoyne completed his doctoral studies here in this fair city, working with Dr. Terry Bloom at Georgia Tech. He is currently on the faculty at SUNY at Buffalo. His dissertation is titled Closing the Leadership Circle, Building and Testing a Contingent Theory of Servant Leadership. It revitalizes a theory that is much beloved, but is too rarely put to empirical test. He digs deeply into the fundamental assumptions that Robert Greenleaf put forward many years ago. And he developed and tested a theory that explains how servant leadership works, when it works, and perhaps most important, why it works. The theory not only extends the basic model, but it also integrates the perspective with a number of other theoretical and empirically based research domains, including gender roles and implicit leadership theories, followers' motivation, psychological capital, Bander's social learning theory, and ethical leadership. The work yields all kinds of intriguing implications, including the conclusion that the effects of servant leaders were contingent ones, such that servant leadership was more powerful when it was used by a female manager. He also tested perhaps what's the most fundamental implication of the theory, which is that people, followers, if you will, stakeholders, if you prefer, when they work with a servant leader, tend to become servant leaders themselves. Is it any wonder that he now serves on the board of directors for the Greenleaf Center for Servant Leadership, an international organization dedicated to fostering positive and effective organizational management? Please join me, the Jepson School of Leadership Studies, and the International Leadership Association in acknowledging his fine academic work and awarding him the Jablin Award for 2016.
And now I have the privilege of introducing our keynote speaker this morning. Perhaps reintroduce is the more appropriate word, because he has a very long relationship with ILA that dates back to 1997, when he served on the very first advisory board of ILA. And he was our keynote speaker at the 1999 conference. He is with us again at another, what I call, hinge in history, a time when we most need to be reminded of why ILA exists and why we must persist in the study and practice of leadership and of understanding what it is and what it is not. I first met Ron when I was the director of the Lilly Endowment Leadership Education Program. I was one of the fortunate recipients of a draft of his first manuscript book, Leadership Without Easy Answers. I learned from Ron that he had preferred the title, Leadership With or Without Authority, but he lost out to those marketing people. But whatever title would have been selected would not have changed the incredible response to this now classic text. As a reflective, research-oriented practitioner, I found his presence and involvement with the Lilly Fellows affirming and challenging, provocative and scholarly, innovative and enriching, solid and enduring, but most of all, transforming. His own life and work exemplifies all of these things. He is a physician, psychiatrist, cellist, master teacher, and advisor to heads of state and executives and leaders of government, business, philanthropy, religion, and not-for-profit organizations around the world. He is a graduate of Columbia University, Harvard Medical School, and the Kennedy School, and is the co-founder of the Center for Public Leadership and the King Hussein bin Talal Senior Lecturer in Public Leadership at Harvard Kennedy School. His research, as most of you know, focuses on establishing a conceptual foundation for the study and practice of leadership, which we hold dear to the heart of ILA, and developing the methods then to teach and train and consult on leadership, building the adaptive capacity of organizations and whole societies. The adaptive leadership framework that he co-developed is widely used to guide leaders and teachers in tackling, I think, the toughest problems that we face today, what many call wicked problems. His teaching methods are the subject in Leadership Can Be Taught, a book written by Sharon Delos Parks that reveals why his courses continue to draw students from throughout Harvard's graduate schools and neighboring universities, and have consistently won the Alumni Award for the Kennedy School's most influential course. Ron is co-author of the best-selling book, Leadership on the Line, Staying Alive, Through the Dangers of Leading with Marty Linsky, which serves as one of the primary go-to books for practitioners across all sectors, and the field book, The Practice of Adaptive Leadership, Tools and Tactics for Changing Your Organization and the World, with Marty Linsky and Alexander Grashaw. The ILA's intersection of scholarship, study, research, and practice is embodied in Ron Heifetz, and the result is a profound effect on the field of leadership. And like so many of you who know Ron, I first knew him as Ronnie, and have experienced his previous presentations, there is no title that can adequately capture the depth of what will be said, of what will be heard, and what we will learn. So please join me now in warmly welcoming the return of our keynote speaker, Dr. Ron Heifetz.
Thank you. You would have made my mama proud. Thank you. It's wonderful to be back. It's been, I think, a couple of years since I've been able to come to a conference, and this is a pivotal time. I think Barbara's absolutely right in what a momentous moment this is. But as she alluded to, certainly part of a trend. And it's not a sort of an isolated moment, you know. It's a moment that has a history to it, and I think it's very important for us to understand these trends, because whoever wins the election, the trends are still there, and the underlying challenges that we face in finding a way to renew trust is going to be with us, because the anger that people experience, most passionately on the right, but also, as we saw in the primaries, also on the left, is the outrage that people experience from feeling betrayed. And the word, of course, betrayal has the same root as the word trust. So somehow a trust has been violated. Now, when I start my course each fall at the Kennedy School. I have about 112 students from about 35 to 40 different countries. Some of them are early in their career, they're in their 20s, they're young graduate students. More than half of them are older, they're in their mid-career. They could be 30, 40, 50, sometimes 60 or even early 70s. People who've had a lot of experience